Hello and welcome to Elite Business Live 2024. We're live in St. Paul's with our studio audience and joining you wherever you are or catching up. And our theme for our first day here in this session is supercharging your sales strategies. Hot off the back of a brilliant keynote from Richard Harpin, founder of HomeServe. Thank you again for being with us today, Richard. Great to see you. Let me tell you who's here, but we thrive off your questions if you're tuned in and in the room as well. So please do keep our panel on their toes. Right, next to Richard is Pavlo Phitdis, the founder and CEO of Auric Business. Well, 25 years of experience across 4 continents. You've started and exited a dozen businesses, Pavlo. That is no mean feat, but you're also an investor and an author. So good of you to join us. Thank you very much. Next to you, Pavlo, is Dr. Rashada Harry. Your organization needs no introduction at all, Rashada. Amazon Web Services. You're an enterprise technologist there, but also, I note, you're the founder of, or co-founder of Your Future, Your Ambition, which inspires children and young adults from diverse backgrounds into studying STEM-related subjects. Kudos for all you're doing. Thanks for being with us, Rashada. Simon Squibb will be recognized by many of you. He is the founder of Help Bank. Simon's an investor, he's an entrepreneur. He's also, according to his profile, a staircase owner. Simon, I think that needs a brief explanation. Tell us more.
There was a staircase for sale off the high street in Twickenham, 5 stories high, encased in glass, and I thought it needed a purpose. So I bought it, and we put a doorbell on the bottom of it, and we said, if you've got a dream, go there, press that doorbell, pitch it, and I'll upload it to my 4 million followers and try and help make your dream happen.
Love it. What a brilliant idea. So if you want to know what happened next, you can follow all of our guests today. So what if today's panel was only 3 or 4 minutes long? What if you could only say one thing about supercharging your sales strategy? Dr. Rashada, I'm going to come to you first. What would it be?
Building trust. Trust with your customers. Trust with your colleagues. Do what you say you're going to do. Over-deliver on what you say you're going to do. Don't over-deliver what you, don't under-promise, but always over-deliver.
Always over-deliver. Yeah. Absolutely. So trust, that central word, and we might unpick that a little bit. Pavlo, where would you start?
I think I would start by saying, understand why you're in business. And there's only one purpose in any business, and that is to solve a well-defined problem. Mm-hmm. But the trick is, you can't be all things to all people. Yeah. So to solve a well-defined problem, know who you serve, understand how the problem comes about, understand the cost of that problem not being solved, and then see how you can solve it, leaving value on the table for that individual or for that organization. If you try and be all things to all people, your sales strategies will fall flat each and every time.
So that's sort of too scattergun an approach, so focus on that. Simon, you've worked across so many different businesses. How to boil your first thought into sales down? What would you say?
Well, I think it's been said well here on the panel already. I love authenticity. I think it's not said enough in sales. Just be yourself, be honest. But I always think it's you shouldn't operate on a give and take basis. You should be operating on a give without take basis. That's what our natural state is. We're meant to help each other without any expectation of anything in return. Most of the big sales I've had in my life is because I helped someone without any expectation of anything in return, and karma came back my way.
So although I'm getting snapshots, I'm tempted to zoom in a little bit. Have you got an example of that give without take that really did pay off for you? Where does your mind go back to?
Well, I fell out with my brother because I helped him, and I had an expectation of something in return, and I haven't spoken to him in 15 years. My mistake. I apologize to him now on stage. His children are in the audience. Gosh. That's not right. I shouldn't have had an expectation. I can argue he was wrong. We had a deal. He didn't fulfill his part of the deal, but I had an expectation. I gave him something with it, expecting something back, and that's not our natural state. So I've made a lot of mistakes thinking that was the way to live, because that's what society told me. It's not true. We're meant to be give without take.
Thank you for reflecting as you go. Richard, we'll open up the conversation, but you've talked about the importance of boots on the ground for sales. Help us get started, because we heard some sales tips, but if you could boil it down to one.
Yeah, I would say that sales is really easy if you've got the right product that you've tailored for customers. So if I gave an example, or 2 examples, one would be Checkatrade developing the offer for those tradespeople, which is about making it easier to run their business. Yeah. So SaaS software built into the trade app. And another one would be, I saved my local village pub in Yorkshire. and no sales and marketing. It was all about great food and great customer service, and then it's word of mouth. You don't need heavy sales.
Love it. Excellent. Well, kudos to you for doing that. A lot of people will have appreciated that. Thank you, Richard. Why don't we start to think a little bit about, particularly for our guests who are growing their businesses, Pavlo, how do we balance between going out and getting new business and looking after our existing customers so we don't take our eye off the ball? Help us navigate.
Well, I think you've got hunters and you've got farmers in your sales team. You should have a mix of both. They're both very different individuals and very different talents. And what's interesting is I managed to get a download of over 7,500 UK businesses, last 15 years of financial statements, and we ran, using some smart technology, some really interesting data. And what we saw is that during the nice economy, the no inflation, constant expansion economy, pre-COVID, most companies had started to place a lot of emphasis on the farming side. And that is where you have account management, you hold on to the clients that you have. Because there are no cost rises, you could still enjoy a good dividend. But the world has changed and everything's changed. And the muscle of hunting has atrophied during that period. And atrophied in the sense that hunting is about going out there with propositions that aren't about the features and qualities of your product or service, but a proposition around how you can help make a difference to the customers you choose to serve. And that road of business development is what the hunter's all about. And we need to regain the skills of business development to win new clients and then retain them with our farmers.
So there are some things on that front foot proactive side that you could say today about hunting that would have been true 10 or 20 years ago. What has changed? Take us to how things have evolved that we wouldn't have been reflecting on 10 years ago.
Well, I think what's happened is there's a 72% increase now in the cost of customer acquisition over the last 5 years. Yep. Digital marketing has become exorbitant and far less effective. And the road of going and knocking on doors and finding a way in to have real discussions as opposed to discussions where you literally show up and throw up the features and benefits of your product or service.
Show up and throw up.
That's the
hashtag I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, well, we've got to now get into a position where people buy from you rather than you selling to them.
Understood. So, Rashada, we've already heard there about the importance of data.
Yeah.
So, in terms of data-driven sales, I know one of your specialist subjects. Help us get into that in terms of what works.
Yeah, and I think we always start, so for those of you that know, Amazon is customer-centric. So we start with the customer and we work backwards from them. You know, as a salesperson, I've been in the organization 5 years, and for me, data-driven decisions are the most informed ones. So when I talk to my customers, which range from CTOs, CIOs, the boards, even individual contributors within customer organizations, I make sure they're able to make informed decisions about what's right for them. I like them to see me as an extension of their team. Yes, I work for Amazon, but when I'm in AWS, I wear their hat. I'm advocating for them. So therefore, it's in my best interest to make sure I take the right data points to them that help them make informed decisions, help them optimize their business processes so they can see the gaps of opportunity and make sure that the decisions they're making are informed ones, which they then build a trust on for me. So I mentioned the word trust at the beginning. It's essential. I will not engage in a product discussion or technology-led discussion without first understanding the business challenges and then working backwards from that. That is what data, decisions, and insights is all about.
So in theory, though, that takes us to getting 100% of the data we need to make the decision we need. I heard from Richard Harpin that we only need 70%. Who's right?
Yeah, to be honest, you need to be able to make informed decisions. You don't need 100%. You need to trust that you know your organization. The customers that I work with trust that I know their business. So I'm okay with them making decisions based on some of the information, but we'll work it out if they don't have it all.
We can work it out. All right, try to see it my way. All right. Simon, I'm intrigued by this idea that sales is only for the salesperson. And help us get into that a little bit. When you're actually building a business in practice, how true is that?
I think everybody's in sales. And you know, everyone's a personal brand, if you like it or not. What people say about you when you're not in the room is something you need to think about. You can either let people do it without your permission, or you can craft exactly what you want people to know about you. I think in the companies I built a company out of Hong Kong called Fluid, which I sold to PricewaterhouseCoopers. And in building that business, I'm a pretty good salesperson, but the number one salesperson in that company was my accountant. So you wouldn't think that an accountant, by definition, is a salesperson. But she loved what we were doing so much in that business. She used to go and have lunches or even dinners with other financial folks high up in businesses and tell them what we were doing to turn businesses around, to make companies successful. And ironically, the CFO in the company would go back to their office, tell their CEO, and I get a phone call to come in and see how we could help them. So she was just genuinely excited about what we did and how we did it. And that's, I think, the best way to sell.
Right, so if that is a takeout, and it is, everyone can be a salesperson, to what extent is that about a state of mind shift, or will our broader teams need a different set of tools to do what that new role requires?
I think everyone just needs to be reminded that they're brilliant and that they can do anything. I think a lot of times in organizations, certainly big organizations, I see people get told, you're that, you're that, you're that. And I think it's a mistake. You know, we are all born with nothing. We all learn things. There's nobody that's born a lawyer, no one that's born a doctor. I think you need training and support and guidance. And I think sales is very, very trainable. I've actually argued with the education minister that they should include it in school education system. And he said it can't be taught, which means he's in the wrong job. Because, of course, it can be taught. Everyone can learn sales.
Okay, show of hands. Who thinks sales can be taught? Put your hand up. Okay, that's a vast majority of our elite. Of course, we'll come to you for questions. Have you got a question? We'll come to you for questions in a minute's time. So why don't we get questions? We've got about 15 minutes left, but why don't I say to our audience tuning in, if you've got questions for anybody, here's a controversial one, and this really is whoever wants to come in on this. Founder-led sales. When is the right time for the person in the sales hot seat to be the founder? And when, if ever, does that change? Will anyone have a crack at that? There's no right answer on this. Pavlo?
I think if the founder, as a founder, you need to be able to sell, because the first sale is always done by an individual. But if you don't transfer and decode the way that you sell effectively into the organization to have the entire business selling, and that's where I agree with Simon. The first sale is done by a founder, but the rest of the sales are done by the ops team. Because if the ops team deliver on the promise of the first deal...
So when you say the first sale to an individual customer...
To an individual.
Okay, in other words, the repeat sales can then be delivered. Okay, so I guess no one will disagree that the founder drives that initially. I guess the question is when? When do they hand over the proverbial reins? Richard?
Yeah, or they might not be able to. So a good example was I'm invested in a business called Passenger Clothing. Great product, outdoor clothing, copy of Patagonia, and husband and wife team that developed the product, they couldn't really sell it. So £1 million worth of revenue after only 7 years. Two other entrepreneurs parachuted themselves into the business, bought a shareholding, and the business took off. Yeah. So sometimes you need to accept that the founders can't sell and find an alternative solution.
Yeah. And keep the founder where they are, by the way.
And keep them. That's really, really important because they are great for product development.
There's a sort of baby and bathwater fact there, isn't there, Rashada?
Yeah, I would say that, you know, as a founder myself, I'm so passionate about the organisation that we've built. And I do think it's important that people and organisations who are buying our services meet me. They need to understand why the organisation was started in the first place. I think there's something about the journey that we've been on, the highs, the lows, everything, that sometimes people buy into. And I think, yes, there's an opportunity to hand off to a sales team, but making sure you are accessible, you're available, you can share that journey, absolutely goes.
I'm sorry, and just briefly on this, Simon, when is the right time for the founder to say no? I'm no longer the lead salesperson, assuming they're still damn good at it, by the way, so not Richard's example.
Well, I mean, I go back to my experience of building 19 companies, and everybody's a salesperson. I think it's the big thing I see in entrepreneurship, the mistake that a lot of people make, is they make themselves irreplaceable. They trap themselves in their own business, just like people trap themselves in a job. So you've got to make sure that you don't do that. Some of the best leaders have learned to accept their strengths and weaknesses, but also delegate.
Yes.
And so, you know...
It's very beguiling, isn't it? Become irreplaceable. Charles Saatchi said...
You want to become irreplaceable. You want to be the special, magical
It's a special
person
feeling, isn't it?
Everybody says, oh,
it's a
look, that
mirage.
person built the business, but you get stuck in it.
Yeah. Well, Charles Saatchi said if you're irreplaceable, you can't be promoted.
Well, there you go. Exactly.
So, on this, questions front row. We will get a microphone down to you. Feel free to say who you are, everybody, but you don't have to, please.
Hi, I'm Garofina from Simon's community, and I just want to say to everything he said, coming from a background of sales and top salesperson in UK, as a matter of fact, in travel and tourism industry, as well as Estée Lauder, beauties and so on, I would like to say that as long as you know your product and what the benefits that product has, as long as you have a proper training and passion for it, you can sell ice to the Eskimos and sun to the Arabs.
Like it. Very good point, all right? And Estée Lauder, that is a very good foundation indeed. Right. I think that was more of a point, not a question, but it's a very well-made point, wasn't it? Let's come to row 2 here. I'm getting our steps in here, and we'll take some questions online. Here we go. And Simon, if you can see that far, you've got a top-line question coming your way in a second. Please, feel free to say who you are. Go for it.
Firstly, can I say, very, very entertaining. Trapped in the business of about $1 million turnover, marketing agency. All of the points resonate very clearly, and certainly the 30 years to become a billionaire, I'm still on it. But the question is, where do you value relationships? Because I have a great agency, all the points you've made, but getting people to get out of the door and see people face to face, it's the golden rule. Get off your backside, go and see people. 80% is body language. It's not about teams. It's not about working from home. I know everybody wants agile working, but I want to get my people out seeing people.
So it's more about how do I get my people?
Well, and where do you value relationships? For me, they're everything. And the point that you made about your brother, I've exactly the same. I fell out with mine and I've just made up with him. Relationships can always be made good. And certainly with clients, never let the relationships go. But where do you value that in the business model?
Right, good. I'm glad we've got a bit of a Cain and Abel theme going on this morning. That's fine. Romulus, thank you. Tell me more on the relationships point. I just want to make sure we got all voices. Richard, do you want to come in on relationships?
I think face-to-face relationships are really important. So I give an example that HomeServe North America, we have about 1,300 utility partnerships, and we thought during COVID, really more efficient model of selling those relationships, partnerships on video, and it didn't work. Our signing slowed down. Post-COVID, we've had a big pickup in the number of new utilities that we brought on board. So I'm a big believer in face-to-face.
Can you imagine building $1 billion business with no face-to-face sales teams?
No, I couldn't.
Can anyone on the panel?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
Simon, let's have a go.
I think the new technology of social media is such a bad name, social media, but I think it's got a real opportunity to be a social media for social good.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I have just kind of been a bit blown away how you can make real friendships and real connections and real sales and deep relationships with people online.
Can I keep you on that? We've got a question just come in here. You're very big on TikTok. How did you manage to grow such a big following and audience on that platform? Practical.
I'm a genius.
Thank you.
I deserve a round of applause. No, I mean, the reality is I've got an amazing team. You know, a lot of people don't see it behind the scenes. I've got 11 people that help me create this content and put it up online and support the people that we support on our platform. It's a big job. It's not... I'm just the guy at the front that talks. I think one of the couple of... I guess there's quite a lot of reasons why my particular platform maybe is working, but I think one of the key elements is ultimately people want to help people. And we've been sold this narrative by the media that we're all kind of like, everyone's murdering everybody and this is bad and that's bad. But in reality, 99.9% of people are super, super nice and want to help.
Yeah.
And so I think we just really created a way for people to help people. And so...
So somebody takes away this and says, all right, Simon, I need to go and get a team to help me on social. Yeah. Step one, how do they get one? They need to do it this afternoon.
Well, step one is not think about the team, think about the purpose.
Okay.
So, you know, I always tell people the purpose of life is a life with purpose. Like, what is the reason you're on social media? Now, I didn't want to get famous, and it sounds arrogant when I say I'm famous, but more people know me than I know them, right? So technically, that's the technicality of famous. I didn't want to be famous. I went on there because someone told me their dream, and I thought, that's fucking amazing, and I want to help you make it happen. I'll record it, I'll put it up on my channel, and let's see if we can help make it happen. Get you a customer, get you an investor, get you a co-founder. You know, let's make it happen.
And you've massively put it to use. So kudos and thank you for doing it. Now, we've got 5 minutes here. Let's take another question from the studio and then another one online. Let's just come here in the second row. I can see your offer there. I won't forget him, but I'd like you to come down to the second row. Forgive me. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I won't forget you there.
Thank you. My name's Letitia, and my question really is around the subject of sales. You did mention earlier that everyone is a salesperson, but you do have different characters, and there's also the question of nature versus nurture. So my question then is, when you are selecting these people to do sales within your organization, what are you looking for?
Who would like to have a quick go at that? We're going to keep pithy answers, Rashada.
Yeah, so I'm fortunate enough to help as an Amazonian to interview people when they're coming in for particular sales roles. One of the things that I really look for is what they're passionate about, what are their leadership principles, what are their own core values, how do they show up in the world, how do they represent themselves and also their customers if they're in a business or organisation. So I think, you know, one of the key things and I also didn't come from a traditional sales background. I read law at university, was hoping to be a lawyer. I now happen to be in sales. But one of the things I will say, which is prevalent across all of them, is they're all passionate about making a difference. They all want to make impact. They all want to help someone else. And I think, you know, all of us on the panel have said it in different ways, but we've each got two hands, one to help yourself and one to help someone else. And I think that is the underlying foundation of a salesperson.
100%. So we could get lots more from everyone on this, but I promised to go back to this guest just in this row here. Hopefully the team have followed my cues that we'd love that question from the gentleman I promised it to. Thank you. And we're on just a final countdown. Richard, I'm going to come to you briefly on not to-do lists in a second. Please, sir.
Morning, I'm CK, founder of an AI consultancy and solutions company, and I've lived reluctantly as a founder not to learn marketing and sales for many years. Took about 7 years to put my first photograph on LinkedIn. Now I have about 21,000 followers and I do a lot of engagement. So I did go through that learning curve, and I am the primary sales person for the company. But eventually some of you might have kind of moved on from that position of primary ownership to secondary ownership. When and how did you do that?
Okay, so we're slightly going back to a previous question, aren't we? Did anyone want to add something that they didn't say before? Pavlo?
I think what really matters in terms of building a sales engine that will go beyond you, in effect, because that's vital. It's vital to get a proper valuation, and it's vital to have the business exist without you in many ways. You've got to decode how you get sales done, and there are two parts to it. Number one, the purpose of your business. Who is your customer and what problem do you solve for them? But most critically, decode the experience that that organization needs in buying from you or selecting you as a supplier. You don't only ever sell to one person. In fact, there are 4, 5, 6 people that influence the sell.
Got it.
Once you've decoded that, you can train it to a team.
Thank you, Pablo. Very briefly, Richard, question comes in. Not to-do lists. Top tip on narrowing down what not to do.
Yeah, the big thing is have the hedgehog strategy, which says, what's your purpose? What can you be best in the world at? How do you make money? Write it down and then say, are the things that we're doing in the business linked to delivering that? And if they're not, get them on the not-to-do list. So if you want more information on that, go to Business Leader and download a copy of the 8 Secrets.
Oh, there we go. That's always be selling, isn't it? Right. Thank you very much. All right. Simon, by the way, if everyone's now a salesperson, do we have to incentivize everyone on sales?
Well, incentivization can come in many forms, but I think that's why it's been said many times. If you have a purpose to the business, not just to make money, have a purpose. You know, I've interviewed thousands of people on the streets. Every time I interview a nurse, most of the time they say they love their job, you know, and that's because of it. And they go to work every single day. For the last 150 years, nurses, except recently, so how bad things have got, haven't gone on strike.
Yes.
150 years. Why? Because if they don't go to work, someone's in pain or someone dies.
Yeah.
You know, you have to make it vital for people. You have to make it a purpose, not just a job.
Yeah. I wish this was an hour-long session. We have been beaten by the clock. Sorry for the questions that linger, but if you're staying with us and we can persuade our guests to stay a little longer, then we'll have some additional questions in the margins. Also, we've got some extra time with Hannah as well. But for now, to Richard, to Pavlo, to Rashada, and of course to Simon, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.